Welcome to Insiders. We're joined today by Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, known to many as the Foreign Minister of Jerusalem. It's great to have you. So it's been an unbelievable month, from the Israel-UAE agreement to Kosovo and Serbia announcing they will establish embassies in Jerusalem. How have the past few weeks been for you?
I think the past few weeks for most Israelis has just been, being in the first line of history, witnessing history. People are so excited by this UAE peace deal, by the domino effect that everybody hopes that's going to come. Bahrain, then of course we heard from 2 European countries. And so the excitement is palpable. And from the UAE side, I just noticed also from Israelis and also from Emiratis, the thirst for peace and normalization.
So you recently established the UAE Israel Business Council. Tell me about the first steps that you've been taking.
So it's something that we've actually been speaking about since March. The peace kind of claimed sooner than we actually thought, which is fantastic. And so what we felt already in March is that there's a real desire from the UAE to do business with Israel and to start normalizing. We didn't think it was going to happen so fast. So we set up the council in principle. When the peace was announced, we started getting all the infrastructure for the council. The first thing and the most important thing is people, having people from the Emirati side and having people, of course, Israelis, people who ultimately and firstly have a common vision for peace and normalization in our region, and the fact that together we can have incredible joy and prosperity and just bring a better life to people. And what's unique about our council is that it's composed of Emiratis. You met one of our favorite council members, Tani, and Israelis. And so we're laying the infrastructure for a warm peace, for normalization, and of course for common prosperity, which in itself, I believe, will bring warm relations and peace.
I'm very curious to know, how did you meet each other initially? How was the initial connection made?
Well, my co-founder partner, Dorian Barak, is somebody who's already been doing business in the Emirates for a number of years. So he already had a lot of friends and business partners. And then some other friends that I know from Jerusalem, Asher Fredman, for example, he went and just put out on Twitter, we want to have our first Zoom call, Emiratis and Israelis. And all of a sudden, we had like 80 people on this phone call, half Israelis, half Emiratis. And it's been like, honestly, Michelle, it feels like we're dating. That's how it feels.
Dating is accurate, I will say. And we also don't have a previous experience. There's nothing we can compare this to.
There's nothing like it. Jordan, unfortunately, it's not a country, or Egypt, that is a warm peace. It's a peace. Plus, we have to remember it was a different era. It wasn't the era of Zooms and WhatsApps. It was a different era where it was much harder to have that kind of instant communication. And now it's just wonderful. And I think for me anyway, also as a Sephardi woman, I find that I've always known that we have a lot in common with our cousins in the Middle East, because my mother's from Morocco, my husband's family are Iraqi. So I grew up with it. But I'm enjoying seeing the Arabs on the other side realize how much we have in common and embrace kind of the commonality. I'm loving that.
So help me understand what the Israel-UAE Business Council will be doing on a daily basis. Who is it trying to attract?
So look, there's various levels. On the kind of ground level, we've created a platform where people can find different business partners or relationships that they're looking for. So that's kind of on the ground level. We have, of course, a mailing list. We're going to be doing events. We're going to be creating a community and networking. And that's really the most important thing, because that's how people create ties, peace, and good business. So that's the first level. The second level, and I think this is what makes us unique, we're also going to be initiating some game-changing joint ventures. My own interest, for example, and this is one of the reasons why I created the council, is I, as one of the deputy mayors of Jerusalem, I'm looking out for my Arab population in the city. 37% of the city of Jerusalem are Arab Jerusalemites. And Arab Jerusalemites grown up in Jerusalem, they have partly, of course, the startup nation mentality. So I want to leverage the innovation that exists in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv and the Startup Nation. I want to be able to bring more opportunity to the Arab speakers of my city and use them along with us as a natural bridge to the Gulf, so that we have, infrastructural development with investment from the Gulf. And of course, on the other side, we have innovation that we're bringing to the Gulf and to the UAE specifically. For many, many years, everybody, I'm saying right-wing and left-wing Israeli governments, nobody really paid attention. They're like, oh, one day they're going to be in another city, one day they're going to be the capital of the Palestinians, and nobody really. But then 3 years ago, the Likud government under the minister at the time, Zev Elkin, said, we can't say it's one city and not provide equal opportunity. And he was 100% right. So we brought unprecedented budgets to close the gaps in infrastructure, to develop better quality employment, and to be able to provide better education. And for the last 2-3 years, we've been making a concerted effort to develop East Jerusalem, the Arab population in Jerusalem, and to embrace them into the startup nation. And this, to me, can be a fantastic new avenue for continuing and enhancing that effort.
So what reactions are you seeing from East Jerusalem regarding the Israel-UAE agreement?
So quietly, everybody's pleased. But I'll be honest, quietly, everybody was pleased when the Trump plan came out and they all realized that they were going to be on our side of the fence. Quietly. They live between a rock and a hard place. They have the pressure, the political pressure from the Palestinian Authority, that of course provides them zero opportunity, just pressure. And I think that for many years, of course, they were hostile towards the Jerusalem municipality, Jerusalem city. But in the last few years, they're seeing that with our hands are outstretched. Come, we will embrace you in. We want to embrace you. We want to work with you. We work with many local leaders. We passed a law to regulate land registration, which is something unprecedented. We are creating a business high-tech village in the heart of East Jerusalem, in Wadi Joz. We're calling it Silicon Valley. We have an industrial zone that we've developed. We have more Arab speakers in Jerusalem colleges and universities than ever. I want to make sure that when those kids graduate, they have great jobs. They have great high-tech jobs. And so this is all, for me, part of that big effort.
So what is your first piece of advice for someone looking to do business in Jerusalem?
Come to me. The first piece of advice is, shall I tell you what the difference between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv is in terms of the startup nation culture? When you have an idea in Tel Aviv and you tell somebody, you're very excited, they'll say, that sounds amazing, good luck. When you tell somebody you got an idea in Jerusalem, they're like, how can we help? Jerusalem, even though it's the largest city in the country, and it's the most diverse city in the country, still it's like a village. But that's got its advantages. And the advantage is there's a real sense of solidarity in Jerusalem. Like the Jerusalemite character is a character, it's an identity, and that crosses Jews and Arabs. And so this, again, is always finding the connecting points and finding what unites us rather than divides us. We could spend all day thinking about what divides us, but we're not going to get anywhere. Again, with the UAE, we could do the same. We've got to find those connecting points and move forward for the betterment of society and for increasing and enhancing people's qualities of life.
In a previous interview of yours, you said that Jerusalem doesn't belong just to us. What do you mean by that?
What I meant was that 2,500 years ago, Jerusalem was chosen by King David as the capital of his kingdom. Why? He chose it because it was an area that didn't belong to any of the tribes. It was kind of a no man's land. Judah was nearby, Benjamin was nearby, but the area of Jerusalem that we know now to have been the David's village, the David's city, the city of David as we have today, the excavations, that's where his kingdom was. And we know that all that area didn't belong to anybody. And the message was that we were a place where all tribes could come and gather. And our DNA in Jerusalem is one of diversity. You hear the most languages on the street than anywhere, between the immigrants and the Jews and the Arabs and the Christians and the Coptic Christians and the Greek Orthodox and the Armenians, and then add to that all the diplomats. We are a really heterogeneous city made up of many colors. And so that's what I mean by Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a place that its very essence is that of diversity, which means everybody belongs in Jerusalem. And so I want to make sure, and this is part of what I try and do, that everybody feels at home in Jerusalem. And Jews from all over the world feel at home in Jerusalem. And that's really the ethos in the city of Jerusalem, and that's how we try and work.
Jerusalem has a reputation of attracting religious tourism. Tourism is a big part of the economy in Jerusalem with
huge.
COVID. We know it's been hit hard. Are you finding other avenues?
So one of the portfolios I hold is that of tourism. I hold tourism, foreign relations, and economic development. And it's been very hard because 30% of our economy is based on tourism, and 80% of our tourism is foreign. If you look at a city like Eilat, for example, 80% of their tourism is local. It's Israelis. So we've been the most hard hit city than anybody. So we had a difficult May and June, of course, and then we decided we're not going to give up. We're going to show the entire country the beauty of Jerusalem, and we're going to try and encourage local tourism. Remember, every year, 4 million Israelis, half the country, leave Israel to travel abroad. Now, this year, they couldn't go anywhere. So my concept was, let's make them feel that coming to Jerusalem is like coming abroad. So we did a whole campaign, which I was criticized for, called Yerushalayim Echi Chul Baaretz, the most abroad place in Israel. But it worked. We were full in August. We did all sorts of incentives, giving people restaurants and tours for free, and kids' meals for free. We did a really interesting incentive package, and the hotels were 60-70% full, which is a miracle in the month of August. Now we're continuing the Selichot tours, which is the build up to the Jewish holidays and the high holidays. We want to continue through the high holidays, and I'm trying now to raise another incentive package to get us through the end of the year.
Well, nothing can beat Shuk Machne Yehuda, I just have to say.
Nothing can beat the culinary in the city, the culinary scene in the city. We have the most cultural and tourist sites of any city in the country. It's fun to be in Jerusalem. Israelis don't always see that. They'll go to Rome and they'll see some ruins. They won't realize that the most beautiful archaeological sites are in Jerusalem. And so I tried this summer to get Israelis to look at us a little bit in a different way, in a more exotic way. And thank God so far it's been working. And 85% of the tourists coming to Israel, probably 90%, come to Jerusalem. So we're the leading tourist city in the country. Of course we are. We're a 3,000-year-old city. Why would you why would you not come to Jerusalem if you're coming to the state of Israel? But ultimately, I also want Israelis to understand the beauty of Jerusalem, to understand what they have right under their nose. And that is a city that combines the past, the present, and also the future.
So how are you branding Jerusalem to the Gulf?
Well, you're asking me a question that maybe I can answer in a month, but that's exactly what I'm doing. We're going to be taking out a delegation of local tour operators. I want to, first of all, make Emiratis understand that the Muslim sites that they want to visit are accessible and safe to them. So that's the first thing. You have to bring confidence to people. So I'm going to be going out with a delegation of leading tour guides to be able to create partnerships with tour guides over there and start bringing tourism so that they can walk around the old city and they can go to pray in Temple Mount. And we have layers and layers of history in Jerusalem. One of the main layers, of course, is the Islamic historical period. So I want them to be able to enjoy their heritage in our city and the rest of the country. So the branding, I will be much wiser once I start talking to the tour operators there and my tour operators here. The first step is the delegation. And hopefully in about a month and a half, I'll be able to tell you this is the campaign we'll be doing.
And you've also worked to boost, Jerusalem's startup ecosystem. I'm guessing that should be a part of it as well.
Huge. 7 years ago, there was no startup ecosystem in Jerusalem. And I'm very proud that it was a group of people, regular people. I wasn't in politics then. A group of my friends, young people who had graduated from Hebrew University, which I started helping out. But it was their idea. Why shouldn't Jerusalem be part of the startup nation? We have the leading academic institutions in the country. Hebrew University is still the best university in the country. We have the best design school in the country, Betzalel. And we recently discovered that we also have one of the top film schools in the world. And so we have all this creativity. We have a creative class in Jerusalem. We have an academic human capital that is incomparable. Why don't we have an ecosystem? And so we started building the bridges between industry and academia. We developed a very special methodology of how to leverage academia with industry. And this is something that I think we could bring our best practices to the UAE. And I think that in return, of course, we could have mutual investment and, advancing some projects which are good for both our countries, sustainability, water, and things that we're very good at. We could bring best practices, and of course, we could get their know-how and investment in return. I think it's a win-win.
So going back to embassies in Jerusalem, I'm curious to know, how did the U.S. embassy move impact the city? Are you expecting other countries to make the same move?
Well, I'm an optimist. And as I'm an optimist, about 8 months ago, I started working on an embassy district in the city of Jerusalem around the American embassy, using the American embassy as the anchor embassy, because it's going to be the biggest embassy. Hopefully, please God, maybe Brazil will move and there'll be a big embassy. But for the moment, the big embassy is the United States. It's an area of the city which is gorgeous, best view, and Arnona, Derech Hebron, Arnona area, in case you know it. And I'm going to be now pushing it much faster now that we know about Serbia and Kosovo. Of course, we've welcomed the Americans, we've welcomed Guatemala, Honduras, who've opened up a trade office. Australia's opened up a trade office. So we're already beginning to see a much more robust presence in the city. And now I'm just thrilled by what could be, and I'll be pushing the mayor ahead with those plans for the district.
So we're approaching the Jewish New Year. Let's end with a hope of yours for the year ahead.
Ultimately, I truly believe that people just want to have a peaceful and prosperous and healthy life. And I think this year we've been challenged with this health crisis that the whole world has experienced. But I think this is a message that this is the moment when we really, again, have to reach out and create ties and understand that this is beneficial to all of us, the region, humanity. Imagine what the Middle East could be if we had normalization and peace and cooperation. We would be a powerhouse continent. And this is my wish. My wish is that we all kind of get that insight and work towards that.
Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you.